Okay, here's a break from our usual programming. I need filler content, so I decided to take the one homework assignment I had last semester and convert it into a video. I'm going to present to you, warts and all, amongst the background of something I hope you all find interesting. Please enjoy. Why is the Blackland Prairie so important? The Blackland Prairie is a highly endangered ecosystem unique to Texas. Extending from the very north of Texas south to San Antonio, this habitat once provided a home for millions of buffalo herds, wildflowers, and many other species of native wildlife. The highly fertile soil and relatively flat landscape led to heavy development and agricultural use, so very little of the habitat remains today. According to the Native Prairies Association of Texas, tallgrass prairies like this one are one of the most endangered habitats in the country. The Dallas region is built on the Trinity River floodplain, and deep prairie roots anchor the soil in place during heavy rain and or flooding. Without this, the city is at the mercy of levees to hold back water during the occasional heavy rain event. These roots also help filter runoff from the city, reducing pollution in nearby water bodies. Without major protection of some kind, the Blackland Prairie is doomed to vanish forever. The Blackland Prairie ecosystem formerly extended in a narrow band from north to central Texas. One of the major cities it extended through was the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Due to its richness and ease of development for agriculture and farmland, only 1% of the prairie exists in its original state. Dallas is a major city constantly searching for ways to improve its green image with varying success. Green spaces are a major feature of any forward-thinking city. Therefore, the city of Dallas could convert some of its unused land within and outside of the city into managed green spaces, seeded with Blackland prairie grasses. This should treat some ecological issues inherent to the urban environment and restore some of the prairie to its former prominence. What kind of problem is this? The proposal to restore the Blackland Prairie to Dallas-Fort Worth involves restoration of a common pool of goods for a different purpose than what it was originally used for. And originally, the prairie land was used for agriculture and urban development, since the land was relatively flat and fertile. Despite being one of the largest cities in Texas, only about 42%, 162 square miles of the land area of Dallas-Fort Worth, has been developed. 27% of the undeveloped land is slated to remain green space. These 44 miles of potential green space count as a common pool good, especially since it's all not one large plot of land. According to McKean in 2000, common pool resources are goods that can be excluded from the use of others with great difficulty, but have the potential to be overexploited, like physical park space. Physical park space is viewed as one of the largest factors in evaluating the quality of urban green spaces, and these land fragments would have to be shared with people and animals. Unwanted crowding or the aforementioned wildlife encounters are very large risks. Most green spaces are typically located in more affluent sections of town, distant from the urban core. Most members of disadvantaged communities in urban areas typically live near the center of the city, closer to factories and other things that contribute to a city's pollution. Dallas currently has 21 nature reserves at the time, most of which are located outside the main city center. Only 3 of these are located in Dallas proper. However, these 3 preserves are found in communities where minorities tend to live. One of these preserves, the McComas Bluff Nature Reserve, was built on top of an illegal landfill. Ecological restoration in urban areas has the potential to raise property values, pressing poorer people out of their communities. The addition of more green space to Dallas-Fort Worth, by restoring more of its former Blackland Prairie and developing wildlife sanctuaries near the Trinity River, is a noble idea, with varying opinions on the matter. Environmental activists like the Trinity Park Conservancy are for more green spaces because of the benefits for the health of the population and the environment. They view the Trinity as an underappreciated resource. The city itself appears to care about green spaces somewhat, as they set aside a certain amount of undeveloped land to remain wild. Dallas is one of the most rapidly growing cities in the nation, and the city's leadership apparently wants to make the city appear modern and quote-unquote green. Wildlife appreciate the potential of more territory and food. The only actors I really can't find solid views for are the general public, who tend to have wildly varying opinions. What's been done to address this problem? Most attempts to restore the prairie, or any other type of natural space in Dallas, have been private affairs. One notable exception is the Dallas Open Space Program. This program was founded by the county itself in 1973, as concerned people within Dallas's government observed that by rapid urbanization had led to very few natural areas within the city. The city ended up buying several acres of undeveloped land throughout the county and leaving them as untouched green spaces. These green spaces aren't designed for human recreation in mind, unlike a public park or something. Funding for this project came from public and private sources like grants and donations. Overall, this program covers 3366 acres of land. My proposal can be seen as an extension of this program, except focused on a singular type of habitat. A typical private program is the Native Prairies Association of Texas. This 501c nonprofit organization protects whatever remaining patches of prairie they can find, works with landowners to convince them to restore their land to prairie, and educates citizens about the benefits of this habitat. So far, they've conserved over 4,000 acres of prairie within the state, including 1,340 acres of tall grass prairie. This program focuses on whatever remnants of habitat are left or could be salvageable. Obviously, as a nonprofit, the Native Prairies Association of Texas is dependent on grants and donations to remain afloat. Its reach also appears to be limited to other environmentally focused groups within the state, as well as landowners, who typically tend to be older and/or wealthy. Reaching this demographic is an accomplishment to be proud of, but most of the general public in Dallas, from my admittedly limited experiences, are very much unaware that they live on top of the veritable grave of rare habitat. Command and control regulation may not be the best method of convincing actors to restore the prairie. According to Salzman, prescriptive regulation, like command and control, mandates what parties can and cannot do. This is the most direct and the most common form of environmental law. A standard all parties must follow is created and enforced. In my opinion, command and control focuses too much on the parties trying to reach certain metrics, which could be based on outdated research. Those controlled just try to reach the metrics out of avoiding punishment, not out of general interest in the regulation. Another major issue with command and control is if the potentially polluting party feels that profits from development outweigh any potential fines that they may get, they'll just develop the criteria that they want anyway, defeating the purpose of regulation. Most efforts to restore the prairie are private, and based off of an actual desire to do so anyway, so command and control probably wouldn't work in this situation. Fines aren't the only way to convince prospective developers of the value of green policies. Incentives for environmental friendliness give developers a more compelling reason to reduce their environmental impact. A concrete example of habitat restoration incentives exists in Texas with the monarch butterfly habitat exchange. Here, landowners are paid to provide land that has food and shelter suited to monarch butterflies. This benefits all parties involved. The butterflies get food and breeding grounds, landowners get money, tax breaks, plus the value of having a charismatic animal on their property, and policymakers get a program that works. This monarch butterfly protection scheme ties into another Texas program to give landowners higher valuation of their land for owning a certain amount of undeveloped wildlife habitat. Land in Texas can be appraised for productivity rather than direct land value, so highly productive agricultural lands can have a high market value. Wildlife habitat is valued the same way as agricultural land, so something like a diverse prairie, for example, could potentially be very profitable for the landowner. Since I have stated multiple times that most of the organizations attempting to restore the prairie are private or get private funding, one can assume that community-based strategies are viable in restoring the prairie. A successful community-based decision plan requires these factors, according to a 2010 article by Ines and Muher. An incentive structure, dialogue between stakeholders, a leadership structure, sponsors, constant negotiation between parties, and inclusionary decision-making. Many public and private organizations at least have a leadership structure posted on their website. In order to get a group of people that more closely resembles the idealized community, I attempted to lessen my scope to a group with shared norms or smaller size. This prevents solutions from being watered down to appease too many stakeholders. The aforementioned older wealthy landowners count as a community because there's a fairly small amount of them, they live relatively close to each other, and they have similar views. What could be a potential solution? As stated in a previous section, one way to achieve this goal is to involve the DOSP in planning the layout of the empty lot/unused land within the city to be converted into prairie. To strike a balance between human use and wildlife habitat, the DOSP has included trails within its parks. This gives people a chance to see native plants and wildlife without encroaching too much on their boundaries. One of the defining characteristics of the Blackland Prairie is its undisturbed nature, so cordoning off humans to a designated area allows the biota to recover. Another major feature is the presence of grazing animals. However, letting buffalo roam the city limits is extremely impractical. A solution would be to pay people to keep the grass at a certain length while letting the clippings reach the ground, simulating grazing action. This has the added benefit of creating jobs, improving the local economy. Another avenue for prairie restoration is pairing it with habitat conservation for some type of endangered animal. A program like this has already been established in Texas with the Western Navarro Bobwhite Quail Recovery Initiative. The WNBRI is the work of a ranch owner and Partners for Conservation board member Gary Price, who converted his ranch land to bobwhite habitat, which extends the prairie by extension. Endangered species have had a high degree of protection within U.S. law. The spotted owl and grizzly bear, as mentioned in Nee's paper from 2008, have led to increased enforcement of laws that protect their habitat. In the owl's case, years of litigation have led to 77% of federally reserved land now occurring as various reserves, with the remainder available for active forest management or timber harvesting under other existing environmental and procedural guidelines. If a group of concerned individuals voice their desire to expand the habitat of the threatened bobwhite quail, the Blackland Prairie habitat could receive a degree of federal protection in turn. By involving the efforts of private and governmental parties, we can make steps to try to expand the Blackland Prairie within Dallas County. Although it's impossible to restore the prairie to anywhere near its former glory, attempting a small-scale restoration can provide habitat for wildlife and plants displaced by development. It also gives the city of Dallas a green project to boost its environmentally friendly image to outsiders and make the city seem like a better place to live.